Hey, welcome back. This last segment, as you know, Frankie comes in here, tears me apart, and does a great job as our managing editor. We're coming to you live every day from the Question Tequila Studios. In the last segment, when my managing editor picks apart all my mistakes, I need a question, and he's got the answers.
All right. Well, John, I must say, this is getting tougher and tougher because you are making fewer and fewer mistakes. Most people believe it's because you're talking less. That being said, there were a couple of errors that we do want to correct the record on. Thankfully, Richard Bay was in the Mix It Up segment, and he corrected you when you tried to shortchange the audience of the Democratic debate by a million. So you claim there were 17 million viewers. Richard was kind enough to do a portion of my job and point out that it was actually 18 million. So
it was in the margin of error.
Yeah, a million is a pretty big margin of error.
It's like 0.5%.
You also claimed that the Democratic field was being dominated by two 80-year-old geezers. That is not the case. The only candidate in his 80s that's running is Senator Mike Gravel, former senator from Alaska. Neither Bernie Sanders nor Joe Biden are octogenarians yet. They are firmly in the meaty part of that septuagenarian curve. So they are mid to late 70s.
They look like they're 80. Well, and compared to some of the field there, they look like they're 80 plus because the Democratic Party was making all these proclamations about how diverse they've become, and they got more women than ever in. The two leading candidates are two 75-year-old white-haired men.
And lastly, John, in the first segment, you indicated that Kamala Harris, I said that Kamala Harris would have done the same thing Joe Biden did in terms of serving with segregationists. You indicated that she wouldn't have had the opportunity because of the color of her skin and her gender. Well, two things. One, Shirley Chisholm was elected to Congress in 1968 before Joe Biden was, a black woman from right here in New York. And if your point was that you were making was, well, you know, they would not have accepted a black woman working with a segregationist Democrat, that also proved not to be the case. Because if you look at the first black female ever elected to the U.S. Senate, it was Carol Moseley Braun. And who was the president pro tem at the time? The Democratic president pro tem of the Senate? Robert Byrd, a former leader, I think his title was Grand Wizard, with the KKK. So Carol Moseley Braun, in spite of the fact that she was a black female, did serve with segregationist Democratic senators.
Fair enough. The macro point I was trying to get to was back then there wasn't a lot of opportunity for African-American women in the Senate. Well, there were outliers, there were groundbreakers, and God bless them for doing that. That's what America's all about. But I was just saying there probably wasn't as much opportunity.
Well, no question about that. I think the problem goes to, and we'll end this the way we began it, is litigating the issues of 1970 through a 21st century lens. Nobody comes out looking good.
I'm with you on that. And, when you hear Cory Booker and Beto trying to bring their best gringo to the Spanish language, I think that is really screwy also. When I see these guys they're trying to pander to this Latin American audience. I don't know. I think the whole Democratic field is screwed up right now, Frankie. That's just my point of view.
I'll tell you what. So there were reports that Andrew Yang's microphone was cut off in that second debate, and the NBC News is claiming that wasn't the case, that his microphone wasn't cut off. But ask yourself at home, who has more credibility? Is it the guy that only got 2.5 minutes of speaking time, or is it the network that couldn't even figure out how to turn off microphones properly the night before? I know who I'd be picking.
Well, sometimes I wish I could turn his microphone off, but I can't. He's the managing editor, he's the executive producer, he's all that. I got to kind of take it, but I'm doing it for you. You know, I get crazy during the show, and I have a question, and I have a little food, and I get wild, and sometimes I may glance over a couple of facts here and there, but I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm just doing it to give you some good television. So this guy comes in and tightens all that up, crosses the T's, dots the I's, and that's what I have him for. He's right. Like he saves me sometimes, and you got to save us, and you got to keep tuning in every day from 12 to 1 on Newsmax TV Eastern, and don't just tune out after Liquid Lunch. Stay tuned for the rest of the program, and all day you're watching Liquid Lunch tomorrow at noon, same bat time, same bat channel.